Okay, we're gonna do this one more time. One more. All right. So, this is the third time that we've tried this, that I've tried this. I have had some technical difficulties. First one was that you guys couldn't hear me because I was trying to talk quiet because my husband has to get up at 5 a.m. and he's in the next room. So, but y'all couldn't hear me, or Kaylee couldn't anyway. And Kaylee's probably the only one watching this, but that's not the point. So, the second time, and I'm doing a couple things at once, I apologize to make sure this is all working. Second time I do it, my husband says, nah, just talk. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Great. Full volume. But I'd started with my AirPods. So when I started again, the mic was muted. All right. So we're going to try this one more time. And third time is the absolute freaking charm. It has to be. It has to be, right? Okay. So what I am going to do. Okay. So I'm actually being told that you still can't hear me, but nothing is muted. We're going to try this. Let me make sure of one thing. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so sorry. So when I asked for feedback earlier, I only had one person that responded, and that was Kaylee. And so I really been trying to, I wanted to make sure I could do this live with her watching. And as things go, this is what happens when you do stuff live, right? Sometimes shit gets a little weird. And so she's the only one that's even on right now. So if you're watching the replay, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go ahead and just keep going. But this is what happens when you go live, man. I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be. Just fucking take it and roll with it. So what we're talking about is pricing. Yeah. So CYA for me, do not claim to be a finance expert or in accounting or legal or anything like that, right? And I don't know your industry the way that you do, and I don't know your experience. All I'm trying to do is just provide a framework that might help you if you're struggling to figure out your pricing. And this is really for our service-based people, because product-based pricing is different and you have your cost of materials and all that kind of stuff. And so this is for the service-based people because it is challenging, right? Because basically we're pricing our time, not just our skill and our craft, but the time that it takes us to do something. One caveat, and kind of a good thing of doing this for the third time, is that I will put this caveat in there that with what I'm about to go through, pricing by the hour may not work for you and may not be your best move either now or maybe just later on. Whenever I first started, I priced by the hour. I don't do that anymore, right? And so a lot of that's just really going to depend on, that's really up to you and it's your choice. But the one thing that I do want you to remember is just because something took you 10 hours to do in the beginning, if you get to where you can do it in 5 hours later, that doesn't mean you get paid less, right? Because people are paying you for your expertise and your skill and the time you invested in your craft learning about it, not for the actual time it takes to do something. Yeah. I could choose to, I've been watching Amazon's Making the Cut. I finished it, right? But it's a like Project Runway spinoff. And if I was an actress and I was going to the Oscars, I could probably hire a designer who had a million seamstresses working and could finish it in this amount of time. Or I could hire somebody local and it takes this amount of time. But that doesn't mean I should pay the local person more or the professionals less, if that makes sense and if you're tracking. It's kind of a weird analogy. That's just what popped into my brain. So let's get started. Price your shiz like a boss. Okay. Couple things to get us started for you to just have in the back of your head. And I am going to go through this. This first slide after this, I want you to just kind of try to pick a roundabout number, but I will walk you through this, but I want you to keep in the back of your mind. There's really two aspects to always consider. There's the greater market and there's you. You have to know what your value is, but you also need to know what the market value is. Okay, because if the market value is 25 an hour and you want to charge 125, doesn't mean you can't. It just means you might have a hard time, and you're going to have to make sure you can justify why you're over, 200% more than everybody else. I think that was right. Anyway, and the bigger thing though, especially when we get into service-based creative work, please, please, please do not have your strategy be to undercut everyone in the market. Okay. One, you're going to have a hell of a lot more clients to reach the goals that you want to reach. Okay. If your goal is $1 million and each project costs you 500, it's going to take you a hell of a lot longer to get there than it is if each project is 5,000, right? Okay. Second thing is though, that when you guys do that, that sounded like a personal attack. Sorry. When people do that, and this is really prevalent in like my industry, in design, and also in photography, like hardcore. You're painting a picture that with the service you're providing, it should be cheap. It should be inexpensive, which means that it's easy. Anybody can do this. We experience that a lot, the designers, with things like Fiverr and 99 Designs. Doesn't mean they're evil. Doesn't mean there's not a time and a place for them and they don't work for certain things. That's not what I'm saying at all. However, we do get pushback. If I say, like whenever I was first starting and I was charging like $150, $200 for a logo, which PSA, that's still dirt cheap in the professional world, I would still get pushback. Well, I can go to Fiverr for $5. Then you should go to Fiverr, right? But it conveys this idea that it shouldn't be expensive. And then if it is expensive, it's just someone that's trying to gouge you. So you don't want to undervalue your personal work, but you also don't want to undervalue the work in general. Okay, first slide. So the first thing you're going to do, and this is calculating your hourly rate, right, is you need to write down every single recurring expense that you have in your life. Okay, so whether that means it's all your monthly bills, if you have something that hits, like I know I do like the FabFitFun box, right? So that's every 3 months, 6 months, whatever, but every recurring expense. So don't think about the big ones: your mortgage, your rent, utilities, bills, your phone, gas, food, insurance, debt, student loans. Do you get your hair done? Do you get your nails done? Do your dogs get groomed? All those things that happen pretty much on the same day every single month or 2 months or whatever. So you want to write all those down and get a nice round number. Okay. So just for fun, I'm just literally making up numbers. Okay. But let's say that you have a really baller house and you have a baller car and all this other stuff. Okay. And let's say that your monthly expenses are, actually, I'll go with a little bit more realistic. Let's say they're $3,000. Okay. You find your total, they're $3,000. If you have, if you have no idea, I'm going to keep going, but just estimate it. Just guesstimate, right? You can always come back and tweak that later, but it'll still give you the idea so you can go through the process. Okay, your next thing you're going to do is you're going to multiply that by 12, right? Because if it costs you $3,000 a month, there are 12 months in a year, okay? So that, I'm not good at math, but I do know that's $36,000. That is your minimum yearly goal. You have to make $36,000 to live. Keep in mind, that's not accounting for anything fun, emergencies, unexpected, none of that. This is just, for me to live, I need $36,000, okay? Once you've got that number, what you're gonna do is, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take it and you're gonna divide it by 50. 50 being the number of working weeks in the year. Hopefully you're not planning on working 52 weeks a year. If you know you're gonna take 4 weeks of vacation, then do it by 48. But let's say we do it by 50, right? And you can already see this little pop-up right here. Are you kidding me? Y'all, this live is such a fail on my end. Oh, I'm not even going to start it over. I'm not. I'm human. What I am going to do, I'm going to take a little drink of my last little sip of wine. I'll be with you in a moment. Okay. Let's back this train on up. This was the slide that was up. Thanks, Kaylee. I'm not doing great, but I'm cool with it, man. It has been a day. My brain is fried. Y'all remember that commercial, like, this is your brain on drugs with the egg? That's me right now, but I'm not on drugs. Okay. So unfortunately, nothing's been too complicated where if you haven't had this in front of you, you're still okay and you're fine and you're alive. So we took our first monthly to 3,000, right? And then this was, and I just put this because I know it helps to get a visual sometimes. So then you have your minimum goal, right? We took that 3,000 of cost every month, multiplied it by 12, and it's 36,000. Okay. All right. Next one. So this is how I realized you couldn't see you guys, because I was going to say, hey, you can see this, which shows you that I've already done this once on the live where no one could hear me. And then I realized you can't see it. Anyway, we move on, right? So you're taking that 36,000, dividing it by 50, which is the weeks that you're going to work out of the year, right? And what you get, as you can see down there, is you can get 720. You get 720. Okay. Then you're going to take that 720 and you're going to divide it by 40 hours per week. All right. What that actually turns out to is $18 an hour. Now, remember, if you're going through this and you say to yourself, okay, Stephanie, that's great, but I only want to work 40 weeks out of the year and I want to work 20 hours a week. You can do that, but just understand that's going to mean a hell of a big, higher number than $18 an hour. Okay. But you guys can work all through that. You're all smart people. So this is your cost per hour right here, not profit. That's just what it costs for your time. Okay. And that's really important to understand and to know. That does not mean you should be charging $18 an hour. Okay. That means you can't go below $18 an hour. And if you have to go below that, something isn't right and you're really going to be struggling within your business because you're charging less than it costs you to live. Okay. All right. So we have our hourly rate. And now we want to multiply that by 3, okay? What's 18 times 3? 36, 46, 52. Is that right? 52, I think. Okay? Is that right? I don't know. I don't math, y'all. And as we've already seen, I am on the struggle bus today. It's 54. I was close. Okay. That's 54 an hour, okay? So according to this particular way to do it, that's what you want to be charging per hour. Now, again, we mentioned you got to compare that against the market. You have to see kind of what's fair. When I first did this exercise, I got, depending on which kind of cost model that I went with, depending on how much it cost me each month, because I was also looking at selling a house and buying another one. But I got at about $48 an hour. And the industry average for me was actually between 50 and 75. So that was good news for me in that moment, because if my minimum is 48, but I can charge 50, then I'm still at the low end if I'm a beginner, and that's what I feel comfortable charging because I'm new and I don't have a huge portfolio, or I'm self-taught and I'm still learning. Then that puts me at my minimum, and I'm not undercutting myself and not able to pay my bills, right? And a couple things. So there's that model, and I'm actually I'll make sure you guys have this if you need it. I don't know, that one's supposed to be there. Sorry about that. Okay, so a few key points to remember and we're going to talk about one other method that you can use. Okay, you are always welcome to, remember, guys, this is your business. You can do what you want. You can always quote on your website. You're going to get a lot of different things when people talk about whether you should put your prices on your website or publish them or things like that. Ultimately, what I'm going to tell you is that you need to do what's most authentic to you. I have done everything. I've posted full prices. I've posted no prices, and I posted starting at, which is what this first point is. So that I think is really good if you are maybe not the very lowest in your industry. If you're in the middle or you have a higher priced package that people aren't super familiar with how much it costs, then I think it's perfectly okay to put prices starting at. So that way it kind of weeds out people. If you're going to say, this investment starts at $2,500 and someone doesn't want to spend more than $500, well, then you guys won't waste each other's time, right? But there's no point in them moving forward with you because they don't want to pay that or they don't have it. So that's always an option to use, is prices starting at. But make sure you just let them know like what the base is. So if you're going to say this starts at this price, you also need to have a list of what that price includes. Because what that also does for your customers, or if they're visiting, it lets them know this is all the base stuff. So if I see something that's not on this list that I want added, I know it's going to be more than this starting at cost, because they just told me, right? So yeah, prices starting at works. If you're you can also do packages, right? If you're going to do packages, you want to make sure that that is something that isn't, this may sound really like big duh common sense, but like for me, I don't do packages. And the reason I don't do packages is because my branding and my website design and my brand strategy is different for every single client. There's not been one client yet that needs the exact same scope of work as the client before them. So I don't do packages because I need to hear what you need before I can tell you, right? Like if it's branding, and if it's brand strategy and branding and a 4-page website, that's going to be this amount. But if it's a 6-page website and you need business cards, or you need 3 alternate just you get my point, right? So you can do packages, but I would not recommend that if pretty much everything you do is custom. But like if you have a semi-custom or whatever, packages work great too. You can also say, if you're not super comfortable or confident, or you know that your prices are going to increase, or you know that it just might fluctuate, price is subject to change. Yeah. Or you can say my 2020 pricing, because that also gives people the idea that they know that the prices are totally your discretion and that they very well might change. Okay. Then you have things like to keep in mind, kind of your sweetheart deals or your passion projects. And these are going to be for those projects that you really want to take on, someone that you really want to work with, and you know that they are not able to afford you at your normal rate. And my suggestion would be for that. And I have to say this to myself, right? Because there's so many people that I'm like, I'll just do it for you. I'll just do it. And I think it's great to have a heart like that. However, this is still a business, and your goal is to make money, and your goal is to be able to pay your bills. So you need to be very intentional about when and where you choose to do those. Think about the long-term effects for that, right? And what I mean by that is, if it's someone that, I hate to say is going to benefit you, because that sounds really like selfish and manipulative, and that's not the way that I mean it. Maybe the better way to say is, if you find someone that what they're doing, it really motivates you, and you want to help them, and you help them, and you either do it at a discounted rate, or maybe you even do it for free. But then down the road, like, you never hear from that person again. They're not in your cheerleading section. It doesn't, you're not partnering with them because you don't do the same work. Then that may not have been the best one to do. And we all learn as we go through that. So, that'll kind of be some lessons. Everyone kind of has to learn that. But anyway, just pick those and just be really intentional and think about it, yes, from the heart perspective, but also make sure you can justify it from the business perspective as well. And also too, sorry, because I made some other notes that aren't here. If you do choose to engage in like one of those passion projects or a sweetheart deal, I want to encourage you guys to not be afraid to let people know that. Not the public, but to let that individual know, hey, just so you know, normally this would cost this amount, but I really believe in what you're doing, or I really want to support you, and I really want to help you. So I would like to offer it to you for this. And I would encourage you to do that, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that. Yeah, it's good for, like, I also think that that's good because, and this is a completely different topic, but if your prices aren't enough, depending on what you do, right? Like for me, I don't charge $500 for a logo. That's not where I'm at. I also don't typically do just logos either, but I do charge enough. I know that it's worth it, but I do charge enough that it has to sting a little bit. And what I mean by that is, if I were to charge someone $200 to do their website, how committed are they to that really? It's $200. If they don't respond, if they don't do what I ask them to, if they're not invested, if they're not working with me, they're not really out much. But if you're going to hire, let's say, a coach, and that coach is going to cost you $6,000 for 6 months of one-on-one coaching, are you going to do what you're asked to do? Bet your ass you are, because you paid $6,000. Okay. So again, just don't be afraid to let them know that they are getting a deal. That's not wrong. It's not evil. It's okay. Padding. Yeah, so that sounds like a dirty thing. It's not. Padding is a good thing. You do want to consider adding some padding. And so basically this is when because we're talking about hourly pricing, right? And so I had to learn this the hard way. If you think something is going to take you 6 hours, you need to quote 8 hours, right? You need to pad it a little bit. This is not about padding to gouge people or screw them out of money. That is very different, and I want to make that super, super clear. This is padding because we, as human beings, most of us tend to go, that will take me 4 hours. And then 8 hours into it, we're still doing it because we can't factor all of the external circumstances. This is particularly important if your work depends on communication with your client for you to finish the process. If it doesn't require anyone else, you can typically estimate that a little bit more accurately. But like for me, I need client feedback. Sometimes I'm at a deadlock until I get your response. So those things, I have to factor in those things. Or your response might be that you want way more edits than I was planning on, and that takes time too. So just, you can add a couple of hours. Again, it's not, if you're doing it to screw people, then we should not be friends and you need to get out of my group. But that's more just to make sure that you're paying yourself fairly, that you're not charging for something that you're not charging 10 hours for something that took you 20. And that's a learning process too. Markup, right? So if you're going to do something that you need other materials, or you're going to, like, for example, if you are going to do business cards for someone and you're going to deliver them, okay, you need to think, you can think about, okay, well, if they went to MOO, like, what would it cost them? Okay, so I know what that cost is. I know what my cost is. It's going to cost me this amount to get all these materials, right? So you take your cost, and a good rule of thumb is typically about a 20% markup. And again, I know it sounds like I'm trying to give you ways to just gouge people. That's not it. I promise you it's not. Because anyone who does know me, and if you know my industry, then you know that even though I'm not $500, I'm still on the lower end of the spectrum. I'm not. There are people, actually, my brand strategy coach doesn't work with anyone for less than 10 grand. Like, that's awesome. But that's not where I'm at. And I don't know that I'll ever be there, honestly, because that's not my people. Let's see, I'm also looking at my notes. That's why I'm not looking at you. For ranges, if you're going to give someone a cost range, yeah, and you're going to give them the price range, you need to keep in mind that if you're going to say that, tell someone it's going to cost someone between $200 and $300, they're hoping for the 200, right? They're always going to be going for that lower number. So if you know that the lowest you're going to get for that is 200, then maybe you say it's going to be between 3 and 4. So that way, if you get 3, you still met your minimum, plus there was a little bit of extra padding in there for you, right? So there's just things to keep in mind when you're giving people ranges. And I wouldn't make the range super big. Obviously, if we're talking tens of thousands, $5,000 range isn't a lot, but just kind of keep that in proportion. But just be ready to justify that. If you tell someone that's going to be between 250 and 500, and you come back with 500, if you can just be ready to justify why it wasn't the 250. Okay. Deposits. I love all of you. If you're doing work before you've gotten money, stop it. Stop it now. And don't ever do it again. Okay. Get paid first. Period. And that should be in your contract, that you do not start work without payment, or that work can stop if payments aren't being made on time. You always have the option to create leniency and give grace in specific scenarios. You don't have to get paid. I don't ask for a full payment up front. Traditionally, I've been asking for about 20, 25%. I'm actually going to be increasing that a little bit, because what you have to remember is when you look at the cycle for your clients, like for me, I typically have a client for 3 months. So if I need this much X amount to live per month, just because I have a couple clients doesn't mean I'm going to get that amount, right? If I need 2 clients to make my monthly, well, that's their full bill. So you need to think about what you need to live and how you need to work that out. So you might need to ask for 50% up front. Maybe it's a little bit paced out a little bit more, but those are just things to think about. So please don't ever do work without getting money up front, please. That's no, big no. But then again, just remember what the monthly number that you need to hit when you're trying to decide how to structure those payments or what percentage. And then the last thing I'll talk about on this, and then we're going to go through one more thing super quick. As far as like IP, which is intellectual property and rights, this is pretty much a standard rule too. If you want to negotiate something different, I'm always going to encourage you to seek legal advice. In fact, my contracts and my privacy policy and terms and conditions and those things, they were drafted from she's a lawyer that works with creatives. You can check her out, by the way, if you're a creative. Her name is Paige Hulse, Hulse. And she has a store called the Creative Law Shop, and it's templates for almost everything creative you can imagine. It's Texas-based, so if you're not in Texas, maybe not the best idea. But they're all like legit legal documents, right? So they'll stand up in court. But traditionally, when you're talking about things that are creative, everything that the client purchased is theirs. It belongs to them. They retain the intellectual property rights. However, any unselected concepts, unused images, sketches, photos they didn't purchase, things like that, those are yours. They belong legally to you, right? The only thing I would say is make sure that in your contract somewhere, if you're providing a service of something that is like branding, photography, anything that's intellectual in nature, make sure you've got in your contract somewhere that even though that property belongs to them once they've paid in full, that you retain the rights to use it for publication and like marketing purposes, right? And if for some reason they don't want that, then you can work that out in your contract. But that's what all my clients sign, that, it belongs to them. But like, I know Kaylee's on here right now, right? Her logo is on my website because I love it, and I use it for saying, hey, this is a client that I had. That logo is hers, it's her property, but I have legal rights to use it in that capacity. It's like issuing a license. Yeah. Okay, so last thing, I know this is kind of like stuff to talk about, but there is another way you can figure out your pricing, okay? This is particularly if maybe hourly is, for whatever reason, it's just too complex. It doesn't make sense for you. Whatever the reason, like again, I don't do hourly anymore, right? Not only because it's a little complex for me, but because certain things that I do, I've gotten quicker at, but that's because of my expertise. And I bring a lot more to the table now. So what you can do is, let's say that you say, okay, figure out what you want to make per year minimum. I would still encourage you to figure out all your costs so you know what that is, right? So you at least factor that in. And let's say that you say, I want to make $75,000 a year at this current job, okay, in my business. Okay, well, then you need to take that $75,000 and you need to divide it by 12, okay? I don't math, so I'm going to do this on my little iPhone because I didn't do this ahead of time. That is $6,250. That's how much you need to make every single month if you want to make $75,000 a year. Why am I telling you this? Why is this helpful? Because this right here, this number can help you figure out what kind of a workload you need to take on and if you have the capacity to take that on, right? If you are getting $1,000 per client, I'm sorry, my cat's screaming in the background. I'm sorry. She's old. She just runs around and bitches all day, every day. You shouldn't even need anything. She needs nothing. If ever working with a client, it costs you $1,000. That means you need 6 clients a month to make this figure. Do you have capacity for that? Maybe your capacity is 3 clients a month. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to charge those clients $2,000. Does that make sense? So again, it's just about, there's 2 ways to go about it. But, and actually I like both ways because I think it gives you a really holistic picture of, holistic and realistic, right? Holistic in the sense that you can go, okay, well, this is what I could charge per hour, and this is what I have to charge per project or per client. But also realistic, right? Because if you're in an industry that maybe they really do just charge $25 an hour, or maybe the projects are $500. Well, if it's $500 a project and your capacity is 6 projects, then this $75,000 goal is real sweet and cute, but you're not gonna make it, fam. And you need to know those things, and you need to be able to realistically look at that and go and be able to step back and say, okay, so, and that's what I had to do, PS. And what I learned for me, and this is something that I'm working on for my business right now, for what I want to make every single month, I do not have the capacity as a solo individual. I don't. Not if I want to give my clients my absolute best, and I do. Okay, so what that means for me is I have 2 choices. I can increase my prices, and I'm happy with my pricing where it's at. Or what that tells me, and it's a good problem to have, is that it's time for my business to scale. It's time for me to start looking for people that I can bring on as a graphic designer, as a web designer, right? It's time to start building a team. I have a VA. I hired her in January. It's been life-changing. But I need to start building that team because that then increases my capacity. So I can make the monthly number that I want to make every month. And it's not all squarely on my shoulders, and I haven't overbooked myself, and I'm not overworking myself, and I'm not miserable. Because if you have your own business, friends, none of us started our own business to be miserable. We started our own business to make our own rules, to help people, to serve, to make money. And it's okay to say that. It's okay to say you want to make a lot of money. That's not selfish. That's not bad. Yeah. And that's something that I continue to remind myself of every single day, because I want to serve others and I want to make an impact on this world. And whether people want to admit it or not, it's a lot easier to do those things when you have money. So wanting money is not bad. It's not. Love money. Yeah. And if you're struggling with that mindset at all, I highly encourage you to read Jen Sincero's You're a Badass at Making Money. It's not a get rich quick book. It's not about any of that. It's all about our mindset around money and how we think about it and our relationship with money. And it'll change your life. So yeah, that's what I got for you tonight. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you. I know Kaylee has been here the whole time, and she's thank you for helping me struggle through this. 3rd time was, for the most part, the charm. Yeah, I had a couple other fluff ups, but that's okay. And if you're watching it on the replay, I hope that this is beneficial to you and it gives you some insight. And as always, you guys, if you have questions, you want to throw something out to me, to the group, I'm available. DM me, put it in the group. The whole point is to grow and to help and support each other. So hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy and as sane as you can as everything starts to open back up. Please, be careful, be smart. Yeah. And it wasn't on your end, Kaylee. Maybe the sound on the computer to the phone. Sorry. She said, I thought it was on my end. I forget that you guys maybe do. Maybe you see that, maybe you don't. I don't know. And if you want a little bit of a laugh, and if you want to know really exactly who I am, I posted a little soapbox thing on IGTV on my Instagram. And I think I'm going to adapt a new phrase for myself, not for my brand, but for myself. And it's be kind. And if you can't be kind, then be quiet. All right, people. Later.